Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on how to use curated workflows to systematize and streamline insurance reviews. Today speaking, we have our very own Ron Gorodetsky. So Ron is the COO and co-founder of Hubly. If you are a Hubly user, you're probably very familiar with Ron, as he has gotten the chance to follow me every single one of our Hubly users. And we have a new face joining us today, Andy Baxter. So Andy is from Policygenius, and he is a business development account manager there. And we will also be joined by Blair Owens, who will be on the chat. So for any of you asking questions on the chat, we'll try to be answering those for you there. And without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to you, Ron.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tessa, and welcome in everyone once again. Super excited to have you here today. As Tessa mentioned, it is a hot day in July, so I hope everyone has some AC or at least some cold water to get them through today. I'm really excited to have Andy join us today as we really begin discussing this next generation of workflows that we're setting out to build here at Hubly. When Louis and I founded the company, our mission was always simple. We always believed that good technology can really help save you time and really help you scale your business and deliver some really great service to your clients. And we're always driven by that mission to allow even more households to access good, unbiased financial advice. We've been thinking a lot about what helps our users, our new users, get up and running faster. And we've been also receiving a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback about the workflow templates that we've been providing and we've been creating for the users that are getting up and running in Hubly and are trying to also introduce new services that their clients are requesting. We also noticed that in your world, there are a lot of software options out there for all the different pieces of financial advice and financial planning that you assemble for your clients. And as client needs evolve and change, a lot of that technology continues to evolve and change as well. As you decide to change your tech stack and add new technology pieces in, that adds complexity, but that also adds opportunity to deliver an even better service to your clients. And so for that reason, we've actually began looking to technology partners, not just for integrations, but actually for curated workflows that can help you really accomplish three things. First and foremost, we want to make it easier for you to introduce new technology into your tech stack to better meet evolving client expectations. We want to help you embed the technology that you do adopt into your existing workflows and into your existing processes that drive the work that your team does. We know that utilization of the software you pay for is often top of mind, not just for you, but also for your software vendors. And really getting the most value out of that starts by ensuring that you remember to use those new tools that you're adopting in the right places at the right time. And lastly, we want to make sure that you're able to better utilize the technology you already have. And by way of doing that, also make it easier for you to train new team members and cross-train existing team members. We know that as your software stack grows, it can often feel, I should say, a bit like a spider web. Where do you go? What do you use? Which link do you have to bookmark? And so we really want to make sure that we can capitalize on the efficiencies that we've already seen our users gain by embedding the technology that they use in the workflows that they create for themselves, by working with these partners to create purpose-built workflows that work exactly the right way to drive your use of those tools at the right times. So that's why I'm really excited to introduce Policygenius today. And I'm going to pass it over to Andy to talk a little bit more about Policygenius Pro. And then we're going to go back into Hubly and show you a little bit about how this new workflow works. So Andy, over to you.
Thanks so much, Ron. Hi, everyone. I'm Andy, Senior Account Manager here with Policygenius Pro. Not sure how many of you have heard of Policygenius before, but we've been around since 2014, and really the bedrock of our business has been our direct consumer platform. We play very well in the SEO space, have a lot of great digital partnerships, and a lot of insurance content out there. And really over that time, we've built a really incredible fulfillment ecosystem for term life insurance to help get clients coverage quickly and efficiently. Over the past couple of years, we've been working to allow financial advisors and independent agents to be able to leverage the Policygenius fulfillment ecosystem in a turnkey manner to help get clients the term life coverage that they need with less hassle, both on the part of the client and as you as the advisor. Next slide, please. So some of the benefits of working with Policygenius Pro. First and foremost is access to a curated list of carriers and products, including some proprietary to Policygenius that you can't find anywhere else. And I'll get into that in some more detail in the next slide here. Next is the emphasis that we place on customer service. Not sure if all of you are familiar, but Net Promoter Score is how likely someone is to recommend a product or service to a friend or family member. Policygenius is 78, which is nearly double the insurance industry average, which really speaks to the emphasis that we place on client service throughout the entire life insurance purchasing journey, making sure that clients know what they're buying, who they're buying it from, and what's going to be required of them in order to get that coverage. And also the emphasis that we place on advisor experience and providing you all with transparency into the status of your client's life insurance application. And then lastly, all of our agents here at Policygenius are fully salaried and non-commissioned. So there's no incentive for one of our agents to put one of your clients with any particular carrier and product. It's really about finding that right fit for your client's unique financial situation, and specifically with Policygenius Pro, when you have already done that financial planning assessment and know the right coverage amount and term length that you want your client to obtain, it's really about Policygenius Pro merely acting as more of a fulfillment mechanism to shop those rates around and get your client the most competitive offer. So here is a list of the carriers that we work with on the Policygenius Pro platform. I always like to start with our accelerated term life offerings as one of the things that makes us really unique. First and foremost, we have an exclusive relationship with Bright House Financial, whereby clients can get up to $2 million in coverage in as little as 48 hours with no medical exam. It requires about a 15-minute health Q&A over the phone, and clients will actually get an instant decision in about 75 to 80% of cases. We also have direct integrations into some of our carriers, including Banner Life and Lincoln Financial Group, that are proprietary to Policygenius, whereby we are actually taking both the Part 1 and the carrier-led Part 2 health interview on the carrier's behalf on that initial phone call. So your client stays within the Policygenius ecosystem the entire time. They're not being kicked around from Policygenius to the carrier and back. It really just makes for a much smoother overall client experience and leads to much faster turnaround times. Of course, not every client is going to qualify for a non-med or accelerated underwriting product. So we do have a full suite of 10 carriers that can offer fully underwritten term life to complement that offering. And we do have a couple of final expense options available for any clients who are interested. The right side of this slide is really just meant to show that if you have a client that is insurable for term life insurance in the US, with our marketplace approach, there's very few times through which we can't get an offer for that client. So how this actually all works to get your client covered through Policygenius and your Hubly workflow. Essentially, through the Hubly workflow, you can access the Policygenius Pro portal. From there, when you have a client in need of term life insurance, you can run quotes for that client and provide that client's information and make that referral over to Policygenius all in one place. And you can actually schedule an appointment for them to speak with a Policygenius agent through our Calendly integration. From there, one of our licensed agents will call out to your client to complete both the Part 1 of the application and the Part 2 if it's an accelerated product, or help schedule that medical exam if it's fully underwritten. From there, we'll send that application off to the carrier, and we can help with everything from chasing down APS requests, notifying the client of any new requirements that have been posted by the carrier, and in the event of an unfavorable underwriting decision, we'll actually proactively reshop that across our full carrier set on your behalf to take all of that work off your plate and making sure we're finding the most competitive offer for your client across our carrier set until the point that we will deliver that policy and ultimately help the client place it in force. Just to summarize, really your work as the advisor begins and ends with that first tile here, while maintaining full transparency into the status of your client's application, with Policygenius really more or less plugging in as your term life insurance back office to help push these cases through and get your client coverage. Ron, I'll kick it back over to you to go through the workflow.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you for that introduction and covering really what that experience looks like with Policygenius Pro. I know for us, it was really important to pick a partner to start to bring this basically pilot to market. And the reason we picked Policygenius Pro, going back to Andy's introduction, was really around the high level of service and really that really high level of satisfaction. We heard a lot of positive things about Policygenius Pro from our existing users who already offer insurance as a part of their offering to their clients. And we also heard a lot of positive feedback about Policygenius Pro from advisors who are looking to introduce insurance without getting potentially licensed themselves, just to help clients project manage that as a need that they have. And so, again, our goal here is to help you introduce insurance into that comprehensive offering if you don't have it, help you work with Policygenius a lot more effectively with a purpose-built workflow if you already do work with them. And if you offer insurance through other carriers, we can help you introduce this purpose-built workflow. But also, we'd love to hear from everybody the different ideas and different suggestions for all the other different software that you use across your financial plans that we can actually potentially partner up with and do much of the same and really help you with purpose-built workflows that help you deliver that service without needing to reinvent the wheel every single time. And so with Policygenius Pro, I'm really excited to show you what that workflow looks like here in Hubly. We're going to go ahead and pop open our hubs. And Andy already walked you through what that looks like in Policygenius Pro. So we'll be able to follow along every single step of the way to see exactly how this workflow interacts and helps you drive those life insurance policies in the Policygenius Pro platform. So for those of you who are Hubly users, this is going to be very familiar to you. This is simply going to be we're going to be walking through a new workflow that we've created together with Andy and Andy's team over at Policygenius Pro. In this case, this workflow is pre-built with steps that help you start the conversation with the clients, submit a ticket to begin that quote process, and guides you all the way through the application, the binding, and the eventual purchase of that policy. So, like any other workflow, this workflow starts out by adding a client to it. In this case, we're going to be working on client Aaron Long, who is an active client in our demo hub with a holistic financial planning focus. Once a client's added to the workflow, really that list of curated tasks is going to be the starting point that you get to work with. For the life insurance needs discussion, we went ahead and actually worked with our existing users who have had a chance to actually trial this workflow first and give us a bunch of feedback, but also with Policygenius to actually curate a couple of articles that are really helpful and give you great starting points to that conversation. Of course, you don't have to keep all these articles as templates. You can pick your favorites to help guide that conversation as a resource and a bookmark, and you can update them still in this workflow's templated Hubly. Once that conversation is complete, this workflow guides you in to the basic client information that you need to collect. In this case, we try to create a little bit of visibility as to what Policygenius Pro is going to require to create that drop ticket. And of course, like with any public workflow, you can customize this description as you collect that information. So as you find out more about your client in conversation or later on via form, you can always fill this in as needed. Once you have all the information and you're ready to submit, the next step links you directly in to the partner portal. Just like most of your software, Policygenius Pro requires a registration and a login, which our team and Andy's team can help you attain. But once you're all set up with Policygenius Pro, you would simply navigate to the portal, which would allow you to open up a new case and simply copy and paste the information that you have on that client to generate that quote. Quotes are nearly instant, I believe. They're very fast, and they provide you with a quick overview of the options you have for that client. At this point, the workflow is there to really help you track once that submission is made. If you pause at the quote with that client meeting, you let them go home for the day, think about that, and then come back with a decision, whether they want to make the submission and pursue that policy, then that's fine too. This workflow helps you park the progress that you make, and is really aimed to help you guide that conversation and guide that project. And so a lot of thought has went into it to keep this task simple, but to help make sure these tasks keep you and your team on track. There's no additional rekeying information required to make that submission. You would simply log back into the portal and then pick up where that quote left off. And once a submission is made, that portal is actually going to generate a link that would allow you or the client to schedule a call with a Policygenius Pro agent. You can store that link right here, unique to that client, so you can always actually bookmark that specific Policygenius agent's link that's been assigned to this demo client. That way you have it handy in the future as well. Again, any changes you're making to this workflow, for those of you who are not public users yet, these changes are only for this one client. The next client that starts out in this workflow is going to, of course, reset back to the template that we've started off with for Aaron Long. We found that it's actually fairly important to track that that call has been scheduled for the client, which is why we've broken it out as a separate task. Oftentimes, this is that step in that insurance project that gets dropped or missed or delayed, and that typically slows things down for that policy in general. So once you know that meeting's been scheduled, or since you're using Policygenius Pro, you can see that link and work out a time that's going to work for the client and schedule it in for them. The last step here is to circle back and to see when the policy is in force. You can check the policy status on that Policygenius Pro portal. Once the policy is in force, you're able to save that down as well. And of course, you can set a useful reminder here in Hubly to help you circle back and follow up with the client, maybe next week or maybe a week later. The goal of this workflow is to make it easy for all of you to get up and running with Policygenius Pro as an offering in your insurance stack. If you already use Policygenius Pro, then this workflow could complement the process that you've already developed. If you don't yet use Policygenius Pro, but you already have insurance as a need, then you can simply insert this workflow as a next workflow for your review meetings or your financial plan finalization meeting. It makes it really easy to slot in a new software such as Policygenius Pro, or to update your existing workflows if you already have that as an offering. That way you don't have to worry about building it from scratch. And as always, if you ever need to customize this workflow, you can go ahead and even edit the template that we provide to potentially curate the links that you want to use in the order you see them in, to add smart or automated reminders to remind you to follow up on that policy after a set amount of time, and to add any missing tasks that might help you drive this workflow forward. So like any other workflow in Hubly, this workflow is fully customizable. It's just that the template has been created in partnership with the team at Policygenius Pro. Want to keep it light and simple in today's call. But for those of you who are Hubly users, we encourage you to message us in the chat if you have any questions, or if you actually want to try this workflow and Policygenius Pro out. For those of you who are Hubly users, after you message us in the chat, Blair is going to help direct you to register for the pilot. There's a quick form that you complete that will lead you in to platform training with Policygenius. It's super quick, helps you get up and running and ask any questions that you have about Policygenius Pro. Andy and his team are going to be standing by to really help make that as easy as possible. And once you have your login credentials, you're good to go, because that new workflow is going to be waiting for you in your hub. And you might hear from us every then and now to ask how things are going, get a little bit of feedback, see how you've changed things, and really help us improve that template that we've provided for you. We'd love to open up the floor for questions at this point. We do have a question from Joe about how do we get set up? And so getting started is really easy, Joe. So the whole point of these new workflows is that we can simply add them to your hub and simply message us in the chat. And Blair will give you both instructions to register for Policygenius Pro on a fast track with Andy and his team. But also Blair's going to add that new workflow template to your hub so you can begin to explore, begin to read those knowledge articles to guide that initial conversation with your clients, and also hone that workflow in to work the way that you want it to. Awesome question there. We also had a private question here about the other offerings that that Policygenius offers and support for those. So Andy, I know you're probably best to talk about this. Did you want to cover quickly the different types of insurance that Policygenius offers traditionally, and how that kind of looks like for any advisors that are going to be using Policygenius Pro?
Absolutely, yeah. In our direct-to-consumer model, we also have property and casualty and disability insurance available. Those are not quite available through Policygenius Pro at this time. Really just focusing on term life and final expense, but we anticipate over the next several months that we will be able to add those to the platform. And our first call there will definitely be to Ron to make sure that we get a workflow created for those specific products as well. I should also add that whole life insurance also kind of falls into that, that next round, along with property and casualty and disability.
Awesome, that's really exciting, Andy. Yeah, I know that if you visit policygenius.com, there are quite a few offerings there that seem to be as simple to attain as the life insurance offering. So I can imagine that as those get brought to Policygenius Pro, we will also develop those new templates for each of those offerings here in Hubly as well. So that way, as the platform expands its own capabilities, it'll make it easy for you to also adopt those workflows and expand yours. Really learning the new process flows, having the corresponding links and help desk articles and everything else handy, so that you don't have to build it out yourself. We also had one other question here, direct messaged in the chat, which was about the submission of all that information that we have collected, that we basically prompt you to collect as a part of that second or third task in the workflow. So I know that that's also been a discussion Andy and I have been having around how can we simplify both assembling that information based on the synced data that we already bring into Hubly from your CRM, such as client name, household name, age, etc. But then how could we also make it easier for you, the advisor, or your team to, once you capture the information and curated it in Hubly, to simply pass it over to Policygenius Pro so that you don't need to rekey it into the form. This is something that Andy and I have been talking about, and I think is something, again, that's on our joint roadmaps to actually discuss a more direct integration to pass that through to the platform.
Awesome. Ron, I see another question from Blake here. That is a terrific question, Blake. Our process for setting up licensed agents is a little bit different than those for unlicensed agents. Essentially, it would just require us to get you appointed with the carriers that we work with on the Policygenius platform. Understand that you may already have some existing contracts in place, so we're either able to intake those existing appointment codes to make sure that we're putting those on the application as the co-broker, or essentially we can get you a dual appointment. Most carriers on our platform, I think save for one or two, do allow for that dual appointment.
Awesome. And Andy, I know that we've already had, I believe, 2 or 3 Hubly users that are duly appointed. And so that has been very seamless from the feedback that I've heard. And we've already seen some great usage from those agents as well. We're going to let you go. We're going to wrap it up here. Thanks, everyone.